Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 21 of Cameron's Nostalgia Podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Strickland, and today I have with me Dennis Scott. How are you?
Good. Glad to be here. Hope you're doing okay.
I'm doing okay. Now, for any of the guys who don't know, Dennis was a composer for children's videos and TV shows, and some of the stage shows too.
This is true. This is true. I fell into working into children's and family entertainment some years ago with a project for Sesame Street, and that led to a Grammy Award for an album I produced for them called Sesame Country. And it featured Jim Henson and his Muppets and other guest celebrities that were on the show.
Nice.
Thank you.
So, let's start off with our first question.
Okay.
How did you get interested in music?
Oh, good golly. Um, I started singing like when I was 5 years old, and I used to tell my parents uh, that I wanted to be on television, and they would physically pick me up, put me on top of the TV. Back in those days, there were not LED screens; there were big mammoth pieces of equipment, and I said, "No, I don't want to be on the TV. I want to be inside the TV." And they started giving me singing lessons and things like that. And then when I was 7 years old, I started auditioning for different TV commercials and other things. And I got accepted into being in the chorus of a Broadway show when I was 7 years old. And it just something about performing and singing and music uh, resonated to me. So I stayed involved in music for all my life, um, up until the time I started doing music full time when I was first in high school with a small little band, and then later on in college, I played at people's weddings and parties as a sideman, as a guitarist, working with different bands. Um, and that led to other things. Eventually, it led to songwriting, which is an important part of music. And here I am with you now. So that's how it happened.
Nice. So,
Thank you.
what was your first singing gig?
The first what kind of gig?
Music gig.
Oh, sorry, I'm getting over a cough. Uh, well, I already told you about being 7 years old and being on Broadway, um, and that led to other gigs. I guess the first job that I had that was featuring me singing and performing on the road was with a group I'm guessing you've never heard of, but it was a popular group in the early 60s called the New Christy Minstrels. And they hired me to be both a singer and a bass player, not an electric guitar player, but a big upright bass that you do this to with heavy metal strings. Um, and if you want the story behind that, I I knew how to play electric bass, but not a big upright acoustical bass. So, and I had to audition like in 24 hours. So I went to went to my local high school. I borrowed a big upright bass, and I got a local teacher. I said, I need to learn how to play this thing within 24 hours for an audition. And he showed me enough to get around it. And I auditioned over the phone for these people, and they gave me the job. And all of a sudden, I was in this touring band that played community concerts all across the country. And it turned out pretty good. I learned a lot about performing and working in front of an audience, and it was a great experience for me. Hey, I'm going to grab a cough drop, so I'm not leaving. I'm just getting something here. Here we go, just to prove it. My bag of Ricola. Okay. Okay. So anyway, so I hope that gives you a little bit of the answer to your question.
All right. So, what was it like working on the Let's Have Fun series?
Wow, you really have done your homework. Um, that was fun. Uh, I was working with a company that I've worked done a lot of different projects for, and the Let's Have Fun was designed to pick an interesting vocation, like how things are made, like how ice cream is made. So the Let's Have Fun had one video that was Let's Have Fun at the ice cream factory and Let's Have Fun at some other place. So and it needed some music, and they asked me to provide some of the music for it. Um, I wish I can't remember all the songs from it, but it's probably hard to find now. Do you actually have a copy of that?
I don't.
Well, I'll look through my collection. If I have an extra copy, I'll be happy to send it to you. But it was a fun series. I had a big, full size costumed character who looked like a big lovable dog, and he would go on these ventures, and uh, and it turned out pretty good.
Yes. His name is Axel.
There you go. That's right. I forgot about Axel.
And in the costume, there was my friend Steve Pennington was in the costume.
Yes. Now, how do you know Steve? I'm interested. I haven't spoken to him in years.
Well, Steve was a puppeteer for Myron the Rat, which is Snowbird's sidekick.
Hmm.
And
Right.
Snowbird looks like this.
Yep. That's Snowbird, all right.
Have you got to meet him?
Um, I don't think I met, well, I think there was some occasion where Snowbird was there representing the local news station as a weatherman, a you know, a costumed weatherman, and he would make public appearances. So I think our paths did cross. Um, but I do remember Steve as being a very capable puppeteer and a nice guy.
I think you did the Ode to the Cold.
Say that again. We did what?
The Ode to the Cold.
Hmm. Not sure which project that was.
The Slush Puppy.
Oh, Slush Puppy. Yes. That was the other place, having fun at the Slush Puppy factory, or something like that. And that required music as well. So yeah, we worked on a couple of projects. I also think he may have participated in something called the Trollies that I worked on. I'm not sure if he was one of the puppeteers, but he was very part of that group of people that were working on shows around that time.
Well, my previous guest was Steve Prevett,
Okay, remind me about Steve. I mean, that sounds familiar.
and he worked on the Baby Einstein series.
Oh, okay. I know about that series. I never got to work on it, but was he a producer or a musician? What was he?
A puppeteer.
Ah, okay. Yeah. That would have been nice. I would have enjoyed being part of that, but I'm glad to be have worked on some of the things that I've done. So no worries there.
And some of the synthesizers I got, which is the Korg X3.
Hmm.
Do you still
But
have it?
um, that's a good instrument. I d- I don't know if they make them anymore, but it's got a lot of great sounds on it. So you play on that? You do some sequencing and things like that? Yeah, I was just wondering if are you gonna pull up something on the core? Uh, I'd love to hear some of your sounds that you got there. I don't hear anything, but
Okay. Do you have the Emu Proteus number 2?
ooh, I think I still have one of those. If it's the one I'm thinking of, it had some great orchestral sounds, great French horns and cellos and things like that. For a while, that was one of my go-to sequencer, not sequencer, but sampled sounds libraries that I would go to. So I don't know. I think I still, no, I don't have that anymore. I think I may have sold that.
My previous guest, once again, is Dave Prevet, and he worked on the Trollies series.
Hmm. Yep. So he probably worked with the folks from, I don't know if he worked with the folks from Animax, which built puppets based out of Nashville, or Pro Kids Productions, PPK. Um, and they did a lot of children's shows, including filming, I believe, all the Trollies videos that we worked on. So yeah, he'd be part of that, the history of that whole series.
You got to be Rockin' Troll.
Yeah, I didn't operate the puppet, but I provided the voice for it because I've learned how to make my voice go up like this. So I'm rock and troll, playing all those trolley hits for you. Because he was a DJ, a troll DJ on the radio, fictitious radio. And he'd play all the hits for all my trolley pals. Something like that. Um, I don't get a lot of calls to do that, but it was fun doing it. And I got to use that voice, which otherwise uh, I don't get, people don't ask for it, and I don't offer it because they might be think I'm a little crazy, which I am, probably.
Hey, Rockin' Troll.
Hmm. Yes.
My name's Cameron.
Hey, Cameron, thanks for having me on the show.
Don't mention it.
All right, I won't. Ha ha. Oh, in fact, hold on. I think I have truck rock control nearby. See, we're to all your fans out there. We're not making this stuff up. There was the rock and roll character, a little fabricated version of him, but he has. You can see he's got special sneakers that lets him uh, roller skate all over the place. Aside from being a really cool guy. So there you go.
Okay. What was it like working on the Trollies?
Trollies was a lot of fun. Um, it was fun doing my voice. for rock and roll. And it was also fun. I actually wrote some scripts for it. Um, also produced the music for it. There were some original songs which I wrote. I think the very first one we did, there's a song called, well, I wrote the theme song. Um, it was called Throw Radio on the Air. And so I wrote that theme song. And there was a song called What's the Story? Um, which was helping kids learn, to appreciate reading books. Um, and we had a cast of characters with friends of mine. We most of the time in the studio we just couldn't keep from laughing because we kept cutting each other up and um, have a friend of mine who does a lot of voices as well, so he was involved with it. So and the videos got more sophisticated as we went. The second video, I think it was Trollies musical adventure, and that required some really well-built scenery sets for the different scenes and lots more characters. So it's um it's a well done production. If your friends can find it on YouTube and other places, they may even be selling them somewhere, but I'm not sure where that would be. But yeah, thanks for asking. That I loved working on Trolleys, and we were hoping that it came out maybe around the same time or before the Trolls movies. Well, certainly before the more recent Trolls movies. So we thought it would really catch on and be a big hit, and I'd make bukus of money and be able to live in Cancun, Mexico, or something. But that didn't quite happen. I mean, it did okay, but it didn't become the next Star Wars. So, but I have no regrets. Was happy to do it.
Nice. So, moving on from, oh wait, I forgot to say, you have worked on the video called the Opryland Kids Club. It's the place to be.
Wow. Um, well, just to give background to your viewers, in Nashville, Tennessee, there was an amazing amusement park called Opryland USA, and it had all sorts of great rides, and it was a lot of live music was played there, and they included a kid show, and so I wrote music for a few songs for one of the shows that were there, um, including the thing that you mentioned, and a lot of they had a lot of people who would come in and out of Opryland, and so a lot of people got to hear my stuff. Um, they some years later they closed the park and they put up a big mall instead, and a lot of people who live in Nashville are sad about that, still sad about that because it was a real popular attraction, and a lot of musicians and singers got their start being in shows, live shows at Opryland, USA, and they considered a very special time of their careers. They learned a lot about performing and learned about a lot about the business. So I'm sorry it's not there, but I'm glad I'm a small part of its history.
Nice. So, you have worked on the new zoo review.
Oh, good golly. To be honest, I must have had a very small role in that because I don't remember that too well. I don't think it was a huge success. So better, let's see, what's the next thing? Let's move on to that. I can tell you more about other things, I think. Isn't that right, Brock Control? That's right. Okay.
Okay. You have worked on Elmo Palooza.
Ah. Yes, that was special for a few reasons. Um, First of all, they used a song of mine that was originally used on a Sesame Street album, and it featured two people that you may or may not know. Crystal Gale, who was a very popular and successful recording artist, and also Big Bird. They sang my song as a duet, and the song is called Songs. So in this case, Elmo started to take on a lot of popularity. He became bigger than Big Bird. So they needed a song that would be towards the end of the episode and have everybody in the cast singing it, including a comedian who was the host, Jon Stewart, who went on to be extraordinarily successful and popular. And he wasn't really even a singer, but he sang this song of mine with Elmo and the cast of Sesame Street and other people. So even though I didn't actually work on the show, I mean, they did use a song of mine, and that's done well for me, and it really exposed the song to a lot of people. I still get letters from people asking me about it. So thanks for asking about that.
Nice. You worked on Sesame Street.
True. Um, I found my way into Sesame Street um, because I had produced my first children's album for another children's record label called Golden. What was it called? Um, Golden Records, and they were very big, especially in the 50s and 60s. And after working on that album, I took it over to Sesame Street, and they said, "Well, we have a project in mind. Maybe you would be right for it." So they asked me to come in like during the week and put on a tie and a jacket. And I didn't get paid, but they asked me to start finding artists that would be guest celebrities on the album, which I did. Um, and that included the late, great Glenn Campbell, who you might know from songs like um, Rhinestone Cowboy and Wichita Lineman. Anyway, so that album was my first time producing something, so it was a big a big leap for me. But I learned quickly, and I surrounded myself with amazing musicians here in Nashville, where I live. And so the album turned out really wonderful with the talent that we had here, and it went on to win a Grammy Award. And at that point, I thought, well, this is a good place for me. I enjoyed working on this, and I got some of my own songs on the album as well as producing it. So um, I've stayed with this approach for all these years and never looked back.
All right. You have worked on Noddy.
Ah, yes, Noddy. I don't have. Do I have anything Noddy nearby? Hmm. Well, nothing that's within reach. But I will say that Noddy was an amazing experience. Some for your listeners, the character of Noddy, he's like a little elf-like character, and very popular in England, in the United Kingdom. He was like what Mickey Mouse is to us, Noddy was to them. And the um, BBC in England thought it would be great to get the Noddy character into the American market or other parts of the world. Um so I was asked, well, asked and I part begged to be part of this album, not album. It was going to be 2 seasons of a show, which meant about I would be writing 130 songs for for the show because it was music driven. It had puppets on it and had live actors as well. And so it was, I was, in essence, I was the music director for the show, which is a great responsibility because you have to really think of it as a song factory. You could be writing one song um, while the next episode is being filmed, so you have to be writing and producing the next song while you're writing the first song, and it's almost overwhelming. There were times I didn't think that I'd be able to pull it off, even especially just by myself. Um, but as we got past episode one, we did two songs. I said, okay, I've gotten this far. And then we moved on to episode two. And then by the time we got to episode, pardon me, I forget what it was, episode 75 or whatever it was, I had written and produced um, about 130 songs. And I'm 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 proud of, I would say, 98, 99% of them. They were they weren't just thrown together. A lot of thought and hard work and went into them. And I'm I'm really glad to have been a part of Noddy. I wish it had continued past the two seasons that it did on public television. But it was both a career experience and an artistic and a creative experience that I'll never forget. And uh, and I a little side story: the man who was the executive producer, Rick Sigelkow, who also worked on Shining Time Station and other shows, he was he was a little skeptical about bringing me on board because basically he had never worked with me before, and he had other people that he was familiar with. But I kept pursuing his attention and kept, putting myself in front of him. And eventually he said, I'll try you out on another project, a smaller, much smaller project. And I guess I passed the audition for that, and he brought me on board, and we stay friends to this day. So there you go.
Okay, you have worked on the US version of the Tweenies.
Ah, yes. Well, that was because of Rick bringing me in for that. Twinnies was another popular United Kingdom characters, and they wanted to get it into, I want to say, Noggin, which was one of the early children's cable TV shows. But they couldn't use the English accents that the puppets had, so they asked me to re-record the songs with people who sounded like the characters, but spoke with more of a American or Northern Territory accent. So we did. There were quite a few episodes, lots and lots of songs. So it was a lot of production work on my part and others. But I thought it sounded pretty good, and it had a nice run on the Noggin network. So no complaints there. Sorry.
And you have worked on the Wobulous World of Dr. Seuss.
Ah, that was a very limited contribution. Um, I had sent them one song which they accepted, and they used it on one of their episodes. But that was it. That was one of those things where I was not as involved in the show, but did get one of my songs to be performed on the show, which is great if you're a songwriter, and also great if you want to save money, because I get paid royalties when that goes on, and it helped put my son through college.
Yes, well, my previous guest, Marty Robinson, was the cat in the hat in the second season of the show.
Nice. I don't remember Marty. I think there may have been another person who helped screen the music for the show. And like I said, it was a very quick turnaround. They basically they they asked for a song, I gave it to them, they approved, you're done. So they're already moving on like I did to do another episode of Noddy, so they had to do that with the Dr. Seuss series. So, but I'm impressed by how many people you know in this part of the music industry or TV industry.
Okay. You have worked on Skinamarink TV.
Yeah, Skinamarink TV featured two, an act, a children's entertainment act, three very talented singers. They may have written some songs too, but they were performers. And there was a point in I'm going to say the 1980s where major music record labels decided it was time to get back into the children's recording industry. Um, as I said earlier, in the early 50s and 60s, there were tons of children's albums being made. A lot of them were the uh, the product of different TV shows. If you had a TV show, you'd have a record to go with it. Um, but they kind of fell out of favor, and so an act like Sharon, Lois, and Bram came along, and they rejuvenated the children's music market, and they had their own show on Canadian television. And then some years later, I got to meet them, and we became friends, and they invited me to try writing a theme song for their show, which was called Skinamarink TV. And so I did. I wrote that, and they liked it, and they used it. So it was played on every single episode, and then some other songs which I contributed to as well. But they were a great act and did a lot for children's music. I think a lot of children's recording artists that are out there today could learn a lot from Sharon Lois and Bram.
And what about the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade?
Um, well, um, let I'm trying to think of the best way to tell you about that. Remember that song I told you called "Songs" that was on Sesame Street, and then it was used on Elma Palooza? Well, guess what? Um, Sesame Street was having a float down the Macy's Day Parade, and they wanted a song that was just a good feeling song that didn't talk about anything controversial. So they remembered my song, and they got the cast of the Sesame Street people who were on the float singing to a pre-recorded track, as well as a classical artist, pianist called Yang Yang. Am I Chang? Well, I'm getting the name wrong. My apologies. He's pretty well known in classical circles, and he also performed the song on the piano. So yeah, it's not everybody can say they were in the Macy's Day Parade, but that was a big feather in my cap. I'm glad to have done it.
Okay. What about Bill and Ben?
Um, Bill and Ben. That was another British character from the BBC, and I was asked to come up with a theme song for them and also some songs for a pilot, meaning a show that was going to be tried out, and if it got a good reaction, it might go all the way and be on television. Um, and the the episodes turned out good. It had some celebrity artists in it, and I was happy with the songs that we came up with. But you'd you'd be more likely to hear more about Bill and Ben, the Flower Pot Men, as they're known, on going through online to BBC television and see what you can pull up. Because I don't I don't think it ever really made it to the air. But that's not an unusual story. A lot of shows never get on television because they just, for one reason or another, they don't make it. So there you go.
And what about the Charlie Horse Music Pizza?
Um, well, I don't know if you're familiar with the uh, an extraordinary talent and puppeteer named Shari Lewis. Shari spelled Shari Lewis, Lews. And Shari was in the beginnings of children's television as well, but she's known for her puppets. She had a puppet named Lamb Chop, and Lamb Chop, she was just this adorable character. But it was like a glove or the puppet just was on her hand. It looked like a little lamb. And she had other characters named Charlie Horse and other ones. I encourage your listeners to check it out because she was an extraordinary ventriloquist. I mean, and also a great singer, and she conducted orchestras. So in the early 90s, she had a resurgence of interest and she did a show, videos. I think one was called 101 Things to Do, something like that, using her characters. And then she had a show that was on, I think, public television, and she used different songwriters. And I was a huge fan of Shari Lewis. I mean, as a little boy, I I had admired her so much. So I approached her to write songs for her show, and she said, "Well, I live in California, you live in New York. I can't work long distance." And I thought, "Oh my, that's sad. I really wanted to work with you." So I kept pursuing her because that's my nature to do that. And eventually she said, "Okay, um, yeah, I like your songwriting so much that I'll do it. I'll break my own rule and I'll work with somebody who's long distance." So I got to write two songs for her show, and she wrote me a beautiful letter. Let's see, that happens to be nearby. Uh, oh, look at this. Shari Lewis is. I sent her a copy of the Trollies project. And she wrote to me, said, "I listened to the Trolleys audio and I'm astonished by the quality of the sound, the harmonies, and the excellence of the overall tape. Congratulations." She says, "I wish I were in the same city. It's a lousy long distance part. I'd be a lousy long distance partner." Uh, but anyway, I guess I got her to break her own rule, and and now I can say that I worked with one of the great talents of puppetry and children's entertainment, Shari Lewis. And I just happen to have that thing because I want to frame it. So that's why that was there.
All right. What about Varepes?
Uh, Rippies, yes. Uh, that that turned out to be a just sort of a well, I guess it was on TV and places. I don't know a lot about what happened to it. I only contributed like one or two songs, and somebody else was really at the helm of working on that project. So I don't have a lot to say about Reppies except it was a credit, and you saw it. It's on my resume. So
And what about Balamori?
um, that was a another BBC show that I got involved with. Um, didn't write any songs for it, but I helped them, or did I? I don't remember. It's a lot, as you can see, a lot of shows. It's sometimes hard to keep them straight, but I helped with re-recording the songs. That's what it was. I re-recorded their songs that they had, and we put um, people who didn't have big English accents to re-sing them. So that's what I did on that.
And what about Gemini animals?
What was it?
Gemini animals.
Oh, Jam and Am. Good golly, I'm going to have to research my own career. Um, I do remember doing something on it, but it was limited, and to be honest, it was not a high profile project, so that's why I don't remember it as well. But I'll have to look back in my files and see what I can pull up on that. It'll refresh my memory.
What about the Dooley and Powell show?
I was very involved with Dooley and Pals, which went on to be on TBN, Trinity Broadcasting Network. Uh, and it was a show like Noddy. It required one or two songs per episode. And at first, I wrote some of those songs with a talented children's performer named Greg Russell, who he's out of Hilton Head, and he's very popular. He does a show. He's been doing it for years under this huge oak tree down in the middle of the square. But but he eventually got too busy. He was starting to get into film production, so he asked if I could help him with some of the coming up with some of the songs for Dooley and Pals, which is about um, an alien, a friendly, happy alien who lands on somebody's backyard in our country and starts to play with the kids and learn about why people are the way they are and things like that. And every episode had a song. So yeah, we did a lot of songs for that, and that was a good project. Thanks for asking.
And what about Sing Me a Story with Belle from Beauty and the Beast?
Hmm. Yep. Well, I don't remember if I found them or they found me, but I did hear that there was a new series for the Disney Channel, and they were using music and they were taking footage of old Disney movies or old Mickey Mouse movies, and which didn't have songs, and creating a song that they inserted into the original footage, which means they had to come up with additional footage as well to accommodate the length of the song. But um, I think I wrote at least one or two of those for him. So yeah, it was great to be working with Disney. You may see on your list, I have a song that's on a Little Mermaid album. I want to say it's Little Mermaid TV Hits, and it's a song called Home Is, which I wrote with a gentleman in New York named Paul Parnes. And it's a sweet little song. Of course, when you work with Disney, you have to give them all the rights to your compositions, so they become the publisher, and you don't make as much money doing that, but to have a credit working with Disney is worth it.
What about BJ's Teddy Bear Club?
BJ's Teddy Bear Club also was for the same people who worked on Dooley and Pals. I had actually come up with a character, that character around here, no, called BJ Teddy Bear, and it started as an audio book where BJ would read different Bible stories in his voice, and there may be in a book to go with it. And I was approached by the gentleman who worked on Dooley and Pals. He said, "How about if we create a TV show um, around this BJ Bear character, Beersheba J. Bear, to be honest, to be clear." Anyway, Again, another situation where there were one or two songs per episode, and I became the music director for that. And I had a vested interest because BJ was the character that I created. Um, so it did pretty well. I may still be on Christian broadcasting television in different places in the country and even overseas. So was glad to be working on that.
Nice. What about Hee Haw?
Ah, Hee Haw was a very, very, very popular show um, on television, but it was a country flavored show, and they had a lot of silly sketches on it and people doing this, different things. But I got involved because having worked on a Sesame Street country album, we pitched the idea of having Big Bird on an episode of Hee Haw. So he did. He came down to Nashville and was on the show, and he performed one of my songs. Um, and I think Crystal Gale performed it as well with him. So that was, a show on national television and working with a great group of people. So that was nice.
What about Kathie Lee Guilford's Lullabies?
Uh, Kathy Lee uh, Kathy Lee Gifford. She is a TV personality. She was on one of these good morning shows on television for years and years, and she was also a singer. And pardon me, she did like a family-oriented PBS show where showed her performing and had different people on it. And she had a moment in the show where she sang a song that I had co-written with a friend of mine called "Before You Grow," and the idea of the song was to be talking to a small child and say, basically, don't grow up too fast. I want to get to know you before you grow. Very touching song, and she sang it. Um, Not only did she sing it, but a well-known country radio star, Trisha Yearwood, she sang it as well. So it's been covered by a couple different people, and I'm glad because it's one of the songs that I'm proud of. Sorry, my cough.
Okay. You have worked on Small Potatoes.
Yeah, that was a one-off project. I I, I was not heavily involved with it. I Josh Selig, I believe, is the producer of that and many other children's shows, successful children's shows. So he finally used me to write a song for it, and I did. And that's the last I heard of it. I think the show may be playing somewhere in the world. I just don't know where that might be.
You did some children's recordings.
Yeah, lots of those. Um, Both as a young child myself, as I said, I was singing when I was 7, and there were lots of children's albums that featured a choir of kids singing. So I was one of those kids. And then years later, I did children's recordings, book and cassettes where people would, get a cassette, which they would hit their tape recorder and play it and follow along on the book. So we did lots of those. Um, yeah, I did quite a few of those. I'm going to take one of these. My Ricola.
Okay. So, you have worked on Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Uh, Yeah, I'm just getting my thoughts together. I did a couple things with Clifford, but the one that comes to mind was a there was a live show, a touring show that would come into different cities, and this was a show about Clifford. And I produced and wrote several songs for the whole show. Some of them were pretty complex. It was also a show that took in the plot. It takes place around Christmas time, so we got to write some holiday stuff in it, and it has at a giant Clifford character, operated by two puppeteers, and then a live show, and some of his friends were also puppet characters, full body, I guess is how they describe them. And um, so it toured the same way that Sesame Street has a show called Sesame Street Live. This was a live Clifford show. So yeah, I was very well represented in that and proud to have done it. Hmm.
You have did a tape recording of the Flintstones.
Well, now we're really digging into some of the my earlier things that I did. Those booking records that I was telling you about, or booking cassettes. I did several of those, and one of them was in a book you could read along about the adventures of Fred and Fred Flintstone and his friends. And at the end of the tape was usually a song that kind of was based on what had happened in the story. So I did write a number of those, and that was fun. That was a again for the people in New Jersey who Peter Pan Records. They I did a lot of work for them, and their stuff is still out there, especially at yard sales.
I seen Sesame Street live 2 times when I was a kid.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
When I was 10 years old, my mom took me to Let's Dance,
Hmm.
and I met Elmo, Cookie Monster, and the Count.
Hmm.
And when I was about 12 years old, my mom and Jennifer took me to make a new friend. So I met Elmo again, Bert, and the Count again.
I've worked on, I'm going to say like three different Sesame Street live shows, but I couldn't even tell you without without looking for a brochure or a program notes which one had which of my songs on it. I think I had one called "Do the Dinosaur" and one that was called "Count on Me." "Count on Me" would be a likely thing to have been in the show about friendship that you saw, but I can't swear to it because I don't remember exactly.
You
Might
have,
be something we could go
yes,
ahead.
you have worked on the Magic School Bus live.
Yep, another live show. I wrote all the music for it. Um, I think they traveled by bus and went to different cities, and I think it did well. Um, I was happy with the music on that. All songs that would be sung by Magic School Bus characters. I remember one song, I can't pull it up quickly, but it was called Wherever Miss Frizzle Is. So, and that, I was real, yeah, that turned out well. I've never written a Broadway show or anything like that, but I guess working on these live touring shows is as close as I've come up to now.
Yes. So, are you a Christian?
Um, well, no, I'm technically, I'm have a Jewish background, but I've worked on a lot of different Christian and faith-driven driven projects. I've done, oh my gosh, like 20 different projects for the United Methodist Church, and they were gracious enough to allow me to be part of their team. So that's the answer to my question, your question.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on my podcast.
Hmm. Pleasure. Well, you really did some research. I'm very impressed by some of the things that you've touched upon, and I hope people get to hear some of my music. They're running reruns of a TV show called Who's the Boss, featuring a guy named Tony Danza. It was pretty popular in the '80s, and now it's getting popular again. But if you ever seen an episode with a famous, legendary piano player singer, Ray Charles, um, he sings a song that I co-wrote called "Always a Friend," and I encourage people to go online, look up Ray Charles, "Always a Friend," and I got hundreds and hundreds of letters from people who wanted to use it for their wedding or for a funeral or just to get a message to a friend. So I hope you and some of your folks will check it out. I mean, there are lots of things that I've written that you could check out. Some of them are on my website, which is www.dennisscott.net. But that one, I think, gets a lot of views on YouTube. So if you're so inclined, be my guest. But thank you for letting me be your guest because it was fun. I'm glad we finally came together in the same time frame and hope our paths continue to cross.
Yes. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Oh, well, that last little pitch was wasn't thinking of saying that, but it just came to mind because you brought so many different things to light that I work on. Um, no, I would just say for those of you who love music and want to pursue it as a career or a lifestyle, um, it's a tough business. You have to really develop um, a suit of armor because there's a lot of rejection in it and a lot of things that you think should be uh, should be used, they don't get used and things like that. But if you persevere, eventually you can make your dreams come true. I mean, they did for me, and it's not always easy, but in the long run, it means a lot. So that's that.
All right. I just want to say goodbye to Rock and Troll.
Ah, let's see if he's still around here. Like rock and roll.
Hey, Cameron. Hey, you're a groovy guy. I'm glad I got to be on your podcast. You know, uh, I'm glad I'm small enough to even fit in a podcast. So thanks a lot. Huh? Rock and roll saying goodbye for now.
So, those the end of September.
What's happening end of September?
It's on the 30th.
Oh, so today's the yes. Is today the last day, or do we have one more day?
This
I
is
guess
last day.
last day. Okay, well, I'm glad I got to spend the last day of September with you.
Nice.
Indeed. Will you be well? And
Keep on rocking.
I forgot to say, you have worked with KC and Buzz.
hmm. Well, Casey, I think, was part of that Let's Have Fun series. So, if I'm not mistaken. So, yes, haven't seen those guys in a while, but hopefully they're doing well and our paths will cross again there too.
Okay, so stay tuned. There will be more guests coming up. Until next time, peace.
Peace.